For decades, the gaming industry was dominated by AAA studios, massive companies churning out high-budget blockbusters with cutting-edge graphics and sprawling narratives. From each console generation, with Sony and Xbox being one of the biggest contenders for churning out massive blockbuster titles like Assassin's Creed, Halo, Gears of War, Uncharted, Mass Effect, and a lot more actually. But each of these heavy hitters has carried the studios in each respective console brand, has brought to the table many great titles, or hell, even Rockstar releasing games like GTA, Red Dead, or Bethesda with their Fallout series and the Elder Scrolls series. I feel like these publishers have rode such a high or roller coaster or something, and has now begun to pretty much bite themselves in their own ass, flew a little bit too close to the sun. These games and stuff grew onto a recent popular subject, which is games as a service. And I feel like that right there is what pretty much poisoned the gaming industry just a tad bit. I did make a video regarding about the death of live service games. If you guys want to check that out, I'll leave it in the top right hand corner for you. But of course, over the course of the past 5+ years, a lot of games started to either be filled with microtransactions, loot boxes, or releasing unfinished games at full prices, like Skull and Bones. Ubisoft, that game is not good enough to be at $70, and the problem with that is just the multiple swapping of the studios. You're losing some of the overall vision that they had for this game, and we get a full $70 price game that definitely does not feel like it should be nowhere near close a $70 AAA experience. But in recent years, a new wave of challengers has emerged to bring games and the community back together after all of these layoffs and unfinished games from studios and some of the publishers who only care about filling their pockets. Therefore, indie game developers has rose to the occasion to prove that they can hang with the big dogs. These smaller studios, often with shoestring-based budgets, passionate driven teams, are pretty much shaking up the industry with their innovative ideas and unique experiences that they bring to the table, and is now actually better to play these indie games than getting a sour taste in your mouth from spending absurd amounts of money on a half-assed AAA game. And some of the shittier business practices that some of these publishers do. But I want to just talk about why indie studios are experiencing quite a surge in popularity amongst the community. Starting with one of the things that comes to my mind is that the freedom of innovation. Unlike AAA studios focusing on market research and focus groups, indies have the freedom to take risk and experiment with unconventional mechanics and storytelling. This fosters a culture of creativity, leading to fresh and engaging games that push the boundaries of what video games can be. Now, yes, AAA games really pushes the boundaries by a long shot, but that's dependent on the game. In recent years, it's been hit or miss for AAA games. You get bangers like I think it was 2017, 2018, God of War, we get Ragnarok, Star Wars Fallen Order, Ghost of Tsushima, even the recent Stellar Blade, and even as well as the Final Fantasy VII Remake. These games have really shown that there's boundaries and new highs that these games can reach, but then we have quite the heavily saturated part of the AAA scene where there's just dropping $70 games and being absolute booty. Some of those come to mind as Modern Warfare 3 and some of the COD games, Diablo 4, Redfall, Skull and Bones, once again, is some of the recent offenders to try to showcase some of the nickel and diming that these publishers do. If any of you remember EA, when Star Wars Battlefront 2, I believe, released, they locked Vader behind a paywall, which is still crazy. And the entire disaster of something like Battlefront, these massive IPs reaching a high-end price tag and just either releasing as shit or very unfinished. So that's being like one of the forefronts of like understanding where some of these publishers like break business practices start to like conjoin in, and it starts to be a little bit up like sucky in a way. Because if you guys have any specific AAA games though that like feel like that robbed you, like I know a lot of people I've talked to, like I spent 70, 80, 90, I spent like $100 something on a package. Hey, even look at Escape from Tarkov, $50 game, then $150 for EOD, and then now they want $250 for technically DLC, like stuff like that. If you feel like any of these type of games like robbed you of something of that, let me know in the comment section below. I want to hear what your guys lists are. But with all of that being said, indie developers are often driven by a deep love for gaming and a desire to create something quite special for the community. This passion translates into games with heart and soul while resonating with players who crave an authentic experience. So indie studios with their smaller teams can iterate and adapt quickly. This allows them to respond to players' feedback quickly, fix bugs efficiently, and one of my favorite devs who did this as of recent is Moon Studios. With No Rest for the Wicked, it was a beautiful game, amazing concept. I enjoyed every bit of 16 hours I spent in that game. And thanks to the devs listening to the community, they were able to make 6 hot fixes in a 2-week period and made the game better with performance fixes. And now the game is sitting at mostly positive, and because they can be closer to the community, they can release updates much faster than AAA counterparts. And let's not forget that digital distribution platforms like Steam, any online stores like PlayStation Store, Epic Games, and Game Pass, and any others out there, really, GOG.com, the whole nine. With all of these storefronts, essentially, it made it easier for indie devs to get games into players' hands, or digital hands to be exact, very quickly, and make it easy for distribution, so you don't have to worry about like disc costs and marketing and like spending this crazy amount of budget to get games manufactured, processed, and fully shipped out to XYZ countries. Essentially, with most publishers like EA, Activision, and more, causes many problems when it comes to the overall business politics behind the scenes, and most of the time they bring a bad idea to release into the game that will help fill their pockets, and sometimes they're not actively listening to the community, or kind of being a bit, out of touch with reality sometimes, with some of the recent headlines that's been popping off with these AAA studios and their publishers. But one of the biggest difference is that due to the nature of how indie studios work, is that they get a bit more control and can reach a broader, wider audience over time. And I've seen a lot of things get done with these type of games, and they're overall just definitely fun to have. But when we're thinking about like the innovation of these games, another thing that I quite enjoy is the early access of some of these games, and having early access and being able to go on the journey along with the developers over the course of them building this game. It's honestly quite amazing. Like with V Rising, early access for I think a year and a half, and we were with them throughout every which way possible. Then boom, all of a sudden they are now like ready for 1.0 release, and it's overall just fun to watch these creative processes go as the game gets to that point where it should be publicly like ready for the masses, essentially. Which brings to the success of indie games isn't just about innovation and passion, it's also about offering a compelling alternative to the often formulaic and expensive AAA titles. Indie games cater to a diverse range of player preferences, from pixelated retro throwbacks to narrative-driven adventures. They often tackle unique themes and genres that might not be commercially viable for larger studios. This isn't to say that AAA studios are a thing of the past, though. Big budget games still have a place in the industry, offering epic experiences with basically a crazy amount of production value. And I feel like some of these big studios should work more on like AA games and drop the budget down just a teensy weeny bit, instead spending like $130 million on a game's budget just for it to not be good or be absolute dog shit. They can drop the budget and really make greater, shorter experiences without needing to fill the game with either trash quests, microtransactions. But the rise of indie games proves that innovation and overall uniqueness doesn't require a massive budget. It's a testament to the power of creativity, passion, and the ability to connect with players on a deeper level. In the ever-evolving world of gaming, indie studios are no longer niche players. They are pretty much a force to be overall reckoned with, shaping the future of the industry with their unique voices and captivating creations. When we have companies like Microsoft acquiring studios, then not even a year or so later completely shutting down most of these studios, they could actually just try funding the studios instead of being the massive voice and a lot of decisions the studios will make. Think of Private Division and EA Originals, which brings me to my next point: overall funding the studios. Now, how can we overall fix some of those issues in the industry? After me and a bunch of my friends were talking, we agreed that letting publishers fund studios lets them drive the creativity instead of being the main decision makers and most of the time trying to fill their pockets. First publisher that comes to my mind is Private Division. Being a video game publisher based in the States, Private Division funds and publishes indie games developed by small to mid-sized studios. Some of the games they helped fund is like Outer Worlds, No Rest for the Wicked, and the biggest award winner, Hades. Secondly, we have EA Originals. This is a label within EA, but this team focuses on indie games. Those games are like It Takes Two, which won Game of the Year back in 2021. We have Wild Hearts, Koei Tecmo's answer to Capcom's Monster Hunter. We have two new IPs, which is Immortals of Avium and Zao. Just using these two publishers alone proves my not prove my point. You guys may disagree with me. That's perfectly fine. But I feel like these studios should, like these publishers should be able to fund these studios and just let these devs let their creative freedom flow. And like I feel like publishers are gotten too safe essentially with the current games right now, because they're trying to find the way to really compete with Fortnite when it comes to all the transactions and just how much money Epic Games has been raking in due to Fortnite. And a lot of devs are just trying to find some possible way to just nickel and dime instead of trying to create a great overall experience for players and just overall being there for players. By not trying to control every which way the projects go, these games can get a little bit of a longer like developmental time. They could probably put in have a better work-life balance. Don't have to worry about sitting at the office all day. Just let the devs create their very own masterpieces. Depending on that budget, yes, you can, raise the money just a little bit so that it could still be a overall great AAA experience. But trying to do all of this extra stuff and trying to find ways to fill in playtime and anything of that nature, like, it should overall just be let the studios drive their passion for creating video games, for telling a beautiful story, whether it's a real life story or a grit fictional story. The impact of indie studios goes beyond just creating critically acclaimed titles. There's actually pushing the boundaries of storytelling in games, tackling the social issues, creating deeply personal experiences that wouldn't be possible within the confines of a big budget production. This isn't to say AAA studios are a thing of the past. They still have the resources to create these grand, all like super crazy, visually stunning, some of the best combat to change the entire way the games play nowadays, like these great experiences. But the rise of the indies has injected a much needed dose of creativity and diversity into the overall gaming landscape. As gamers become more conscious of what games they need to buy due to the economy and inflation being stupidly crazy high, and we're all hurting, paycheck to paycheck, and we got to figure out, well, what game do I want to actually buy next and have a struggle. Like, most of the time you could buy like 3 good indie games for the same price as a one singular trash $70 game or $60 game, whichever price tag they want to put it really at AAA pricing, and then like, oh, let's nickel and dime them with DLCs and all that good stuff. With indie studios being more well positioned to continue to be a major force in the industry with these smaller price tag games, like think of, like as I was saying, that 3 games for the price of 1. This one's gonna be scuffed, but like I just name off a couple. We got like Helldivers 2 at $40. We got Sea of Stars at $35. No Rest for the Wicked for another $35. Like 1, 2 to 3 of these games can get you the same price as a singular game, therefore proving that great games can come in all shapes and sizes. But I want you to let me know what's your favorite indie game to play and feel like gives you more of an experience than most of these AAA games. But as always, stay safe out there, and it's been your host KSDTV here at Chaotic Inc. signing out. Peace.